for tuning in to Written on the Edge, Season 8, Episode 11. In this week's episode, we will be discussing Brad Shreve's new project, Queer We Are. Then we'll be reviewing the film Bros with guest reviewer Albert Nothlit. So we've got a lot in store for you today. Stick around. We're going to break this episode up into chapters so you can hop to your favorite part if you're on a busy day. But now, on to the interview. Brad's life has been a series of adjustments. He was 35 and had a wife and daughter when he came out, forcing him to adapt from living a lie to being who he is overnight. Freeing, yet difficult. Later, drugs and alcohol consumed his life, taking him from being a corporate executive to living on the streets of Los Angeles. Once he believed he had rebounded, his life took another turn and he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, a disease he struggled with his entire life but didn't understand. Brad realized although his life was a series of struggles, he survived by following the inspiration of others and redefining his life and what success meant to him. Many people have the definition of success thrust upon them, and queer people especially. Wanting others to be inspired as he had been, he decided to launch Queer We Are. Brad's goal is to motivate and inspire listeners without feeling they're listening to a show about motivation and inspiration. His expectation is he'll help more people by making his conversations equally entertaining. Brad, welcome back to the show.
It's good to be back. It's great to see you guys.
Yeah, our returning
It's
champion.
great to see you too.
I think this is my third time.
Yeah,
It is, but the first two were about your books, so this one's new for us.
That is true. This is very different. I wish I had a book to talk about, but I have one coming eventually.
You do, and hopefully we'll get to hear about it when it's ready.
Yes, you will.
So, Queer We Are sounds like a wonderful podcast. Tell us about it. What was the bit of your bio covered it, but more specifically, the inspiration, the reason you decided to take on all the work to help people.
Well, there's several different ways that came about. Well, let me just start with ending my previous podcast, which was Queer Writers of Crime, which I had for 3 years. And I interviewed, as you know, LGBTQ authors of mystery, suspense, and thriller novels.
Mm-hmm.
And after 3 years, I was ready for a change. And anybody that listened to the show, it was about an hour long. And unlike a lot of like other mystery podcasts, we talked about the book maybe for 5 minutes. And the rest of the time, it was about the guest. And I really realized, that was my favorite part. And as you guys know, having been podcasting long enough, everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. And I thought, I think I want to do something different and talk to a different variety of different people. Like you guys have different types of artwork. So I thought, where do I go with this? And about 20 years ago, when I was first diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and my life was a mess. If it wasn't for my husband, Maurice, I wouldn't be here today. I couldn't function. I couldn't leave the house. I was agoraphobic. The few times I would get to go to the supermarket, I would run out almost screaming because every light and every color and every voice and every sound just was coming at me one time. So Maurice and I, once I started to get a little bit better, kind of a long story of how that happened, but once I started to get a little bit better, we started attending church, which is a Unitarian Universalist church. And for those that aren't religious, please don't let me lose you right now, because there are many atheists that attend the Unitarian church. Let me say that real quick so you'll understand. Mm-hmm. The Unitarian Church is it's been around for 500 years. People think it's brand new. It started when people didn't believe in the unity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. They didn't believe in the unity. So a lot of the founders of the church were burned at the stake. And over the years, it's morphed. And there was another church called the Universalist Church, which they taught that a loving God would not send people to hell. So everybody was going to heaven. And during the 1700s, when life was toughest throughout most of history, Universalist Church spread like wildfire across the country. Why both aren't as big as they used to be, I don't know, but they merged. And when they merged, they realized, people don't have to believe in God to be a good person. So, and there's a reason why I'm going down this long path. So they came up with 7 principles. I'm just going to give the first one, which is everyone has inherent worth and dignity. So as I was getting better, I wanted to be a Unitarian minister. And I didn't want to be a minister of a church because I wasn't interested in running, even though I love to be the center of attention. I didn't want the whole business end of running a church. I liked the pastoral care part and helping people. So I actually did that for the minister as much as I possibly could. I was not really very functional, but I did a little bit. And unfortunately, to become a minister is very expensive and takes a lot of schooling. And between the cost and my inability to really focus, I did try going back to school, and they even had somebody stand next to me at that time. And I, would, like when I had a test, I would be taken to a separate room and given as long as I wanted to take a test. I just couldn't do it at that time. So I dropped the idea. And so to kind of come back around when I decided to do this show, I thought, I have a lot to share. I have a lot of life lessons to share, and other people do too. And that's why I decided to go this route. I wanted something that was positive. I wanted to show, I don't know if you guys know this, there's a lot of LGBTQ podcasts that have to do with sex. Are you aware
Oh
of
yeah,
this?
there's
I've
several
seen a
on
couple of
YouTube,
them.
I,
and I wonder how they do
I'm
it.
saying that because I had one podcast. I'm saying that because I had a podcast saying no podcast can be successful if they have a queer audience unless it's all about sex. I'm like, okay. So I have no problem. We talk about sex on my show, but I didn't want that to be the
Right.
focus. And it's not, when I say it's positive, it's not. We get into the shit that's happening in the world. You can't avoid it. What I stress is we don't stay there. So yeah, we'll talk about what's going on with Florida. We'll talk about what's going on in Tennessee and the shit that's happening with the drag queens and that sort of thing. But then, what are we doing about it? Or
Hmm.
a lot of times I'm talking to activists and they tell me what they are doing about it. Or I talk to somebody with CNN or an artist, and they may not be actively doing activist work, but they talk about how do they keep it together in a time like this.
Mm.
And that's the focus, really, is what it's all
Right.
about. For the most part, I went through their good stories to motivate people to pursue their dreams.
Plus, I think
I
that.
didn't see there was enough of that out there.
Plus, I also think that many people are taught that their stories don't matter. It's kind of like a self-deprecating kind of position to take, and they don't realize that by telling our stories we connect more with people than we do put them off. You know what I mean? It's like it the whole concept of telling stories, which is probably the most innately human thing that we all do, um, is what connects us. And I think you doing a podcast like this, it can only help, especially our wounded and continually wounded community, to rise above that and to find more unity, amongst ourselves as a community, and start really working as a community. Because I think there's a lot of, you get a lot of these podcasts or these, and they have little bitchy queens, and that's their gig. I get it. I was young. I did that
Mm-hmm.
stupid shit too.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we get to a point where I think a lot of us older cats in the neighborhood, we kind of think, okay, we need to step beyond that cattiness, which is nothing but a wall that we put up to protect ourselves. And I think there's a podcast on YouTube called Gay Men Going Deeper, and it's about finding the humanity within our own community. And I love to lift up those kinds of podcasts. I'll comment on them. I will tell them they're doing a great job, just because I don't want those kinds of voices to die within the community, because they're so important. I think what you're doing is right in that vein.
Yeah, and first of all, when it comes to gay men going deeper, the first time I ever saw the name of that show, I thought, "Oh, that is so awesome, man! I wish I had thought of that." But really, it wouldn't have worked with my show. I just think it's a great
Yeah,
name. Uh, and I want to clarify, I have nothing against podcasts about sex. Tags talk about gay sex. I know the guys over there. I was on
right.
their show
Hmm.
once, and it's a great show.
Hmm.
I have no problem with all kinds of all the campy uh, pop culture podcasts are out there. They're great too. They all serve a purpose, and I have no
Right,
issue with them. I
right.
listen to a bunch of them. I just wanted. I'm like, what is missing? Is what I said. What else
Hmm.
is out there that people need? And this is where I
Hmm.
saw the need. And you're right. It is all about storytelling. And what is so interesting to me is, I'm not gonna say everybody's the same, because they're not, but they are. we all have our struggles. We think everybody has it better. I had Miguel Marquez, who's a senior national correspondent with CNN on, and I asked him about an incident where he wasn't ever really in the closet, but an incident where somebody didn't know he was gay, and it was difficult. And he talked about a party he was at, and it was a funny story, but it was like something any of us would experience. And all the
Mm-hmm.
individuals I talk to are similar. I am going to start having more, what do I say, average everyday folk, and that was per the request of my listeners. Yeah, they loved having Coco Peru on. They loved having Miguel Marquez, and I had Anta, and I could go on with the list, and maybe I'll give a list a little bit later. And they love that, but we were like, we want to hear everyday folks that dealt with their struggles too. So I have a guy, Philip, coming up who just talked about going through the AIDS crisis, and it was, we all heard the AIDS crisis stories, but it's not a story about. It is a story about what it was like, but it was a story how he thrived being HIV positive when everyone around him was dying,
Right.
and how he lived life to the fullest and continued to do so despite. And I had Sean Strube, who's the founder of Pause Magazine, on, and he basically told the same story. When he founded Pause Magazine, he didn't think he was going to be alive to see the first issue, and today he's a small town mayor in Pennsylvania. So, and here's this guy that was with ACT UP, did all kinds of crazy activist things during the 80s, and now he's in a small town mayor in a very red district of Pennsylvania, just living a good life. And everybody is interesting, and they all have stories of it's all about success. Let me get that. And when I say success, I have to stress it's not money, it's not fame. Each guest, most of the time, I will ask them, what makes you successful? And sometimes they'll say to me before we're on the air, they'll go, well, I'm not really successful. I don't have a lot of money. I know. I'm like, no. I wouldn't have had you on the show if you weren't successful. What makes you successful? And that's the difference. And what success means changes throughout our life. And so once you may achieve one goal, then it doesn't mean that you're over. One thing I commonly ask is, have you reached your aha moment? Or I'm sorry, have you reached your I made it moment? And very frequently I'll get, I made it moment, and now I'm moving on to the next one. And that's what I talk about when I talk about redefining your life. I had different, when I came out, my whole life changed dramatically. And I had to learn what it was like to be a gay man and live openly. I knew what it was like to be a gay man, but not openly. And that was so incredibly freeing. But at the same time, I started hitting the bathhouses, which again, nothing wrong with those, but came out with that, the drugs and the alcohol. I met a guy that was, I lived up about 80 miles from San Francisco, and I moved down to LA. I met this guy. He had been a model. He was gorgeous. He was a DJ. He was charming as could be. Not the smartest guy in the world, but he was very charming. And so, it was. I was excited. We would go to clubs in LA and just walk right past the line and go right in. We never paid for drinks, and I thought, wow, this is. I had made it. I was out and living this great lifestyle, and what that great lifestyle was us being up till going home when the light was up, and we stayed that way. We were able to do that because meth swirling through my brain and being drunk, and it turned into an abusive relationship, both physically and mentally. Whether I would have stayed if it wasn't for the drugs and alcohol, I don't know. I don't think I would have. I used to work in a small town that a lot of my employees were mostly women and were abused, and I would take them to the shelter, and I'm like, why did they stay? Well, now I understood, because you fight like hell. If I just do better, I'll make this work. And unfortunately, that relationship ended when he was driven away in a police car. Actually, it didn't end, but it got messier. We'll put it that way. And from that point, I survived by sleeping on people's couches, and I went from one couch to another. And you know what? I ran out of couches because nobody wanted to put up with me anymore. Because I didn't really have friends. We had party
Right.
people.
Right.
We had people that would come over, and we would do drugs and have lots of sex in our apartment and drink, and that was our quote friends. And so I kind of they put up with me for a little while, and then that ended. It dried up, and I wound up on the streets in LA, and I'm fortunately still getting drugs the best way I can. So. And I learned a lot from that experience. I learned a lot from the coming out experience. Um, when I was able to rebuild my life, which was a very long process of getting clean and sober, that's when the bipolar hit. I had a career in the hotel industry. I hadn't worked in a hotel for decades, but worked in executive offices, and that's where I was when I wound up homeless. And so that was quite a change of lifestyle, change of lifestyle. And then after I started working again, I got a job in a coffee shop. It was all I could do. In fact, the guy that was helping me get sober, he said, "Don't fill out resumes. You can't do a resume job. Fill out applications. That's all you can handle." But they loved me, and I quickly got developed into a management career. And I was it was not Starbucks, but it was a very large chain, and I was the manager of their flagship store. I was like the glory boy. And then one day I just stopped showing up. I didn't call in. I just didn't show up. Employees didn't know where I was. The corporate office didn't know where I was. And I was physically incapable and mentally incapable of picking up the phone and saying where I was. And
Okay.
I
I
had to
need
go
to
through
call
that whole
I need to call a
process.
sidebar. Brad, we need to call a sidebar. Your camera just shut
Mm-hmm.
off.
Did it?
I can still
You
see
can
him.
still see him? I can't see him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Go ahead and continue. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You disappeared on my end. Okay.
Am I kind of going on too many different directions here?
No.
No,
Okay.
you're actually
Okay.
following a thread.
All right.
Okay.
Continue.
So when I stopped showing up for work, I knew during this whole time, let me just say this, when I was homeless and trying to get sober, I knew that I had some type of mental illness, and I didn't know what it was. And in fact, I'll tell you the way I got sober is the Gay and Lesbian Center in Los Angeles at that time was the first and only gay and lesbian center that had a domestic violence program. And I hope they're not the only one anymore. But I went in there. They had a sliding scale basis, and I was allowed to pay only $1 a week. And sometimes I didn't have that dollar, and they would just put it on my tab. And after my third visit, my therapist, he talked a little bit about his past and violence and drugs and alcohol, and he's jamming away, and I'm like, this is like my dollar. Why is he taking my whole hour talking about himself? And I was getting really pissed off. And he finally ended. He goes, and today I've got this great job. I'm a therapist. I live with my husband in the Hollywood Hills, and that's where I am. Look at where you are. And I told him, this is something a therapist typically won't say to people. He said, get the fuck out of my office. But he also gave me a map and said, here's where you need to go. And I listened to him. And he ended up being as close a friend as a therapist can be.
Right.
We were in the same circles, so we always had to kind of avoid each other when we would see each other with friends. But he saved my life. There are multiple people in my life that saved me. And the reason is because I always was reaching. I knew it had to get better. There were times I wanted to want to die, but I couldn't get there. I would look at people that were also homeless that were, I'm dragging my duffel bag around West Hollywood, hiding in bushes behind the library or the West Hollywood City Hall during the day so I could go do stuff. And I don't know how I stayed clean, but I stayed pretty clean. I was sleeping on the Santa Monica Pier at nights or sleeping city buses. I would sleep on, I knew the longest route so I could get a good night's sleep. But I was looking pretty good for a guy the way I was. And I would see these people lying on the streets and they'd be blistered and dirty. And I'm like, I really wish I could be them because they've given up. They've given up and they're just going to wait till they die. And I am so damn tired of fighting. But let me tell you what saved me. And this is what I want everybody to realize. What I realized regularly, it would hit me. And when I was at my lowest and I'm like, this is it. I realized how lucky I was because I had a clean slate. And how many adults can look at their life and say, I have a clean slate and I can put on there whatever I want. And that's what kept me going. Now, did it work every time? No. Sometimes I would start with that clean slate and it would end up a disaster. But then I could again start with a clean slate again. And that's what kept me going and going. And that those experiences of fighting to adapting to the different circumstances that I had and the steps that I made is when I realized that, everybody's going through their own shit, whether they're homeless or just, just can't pay the rent this month. And I just wanted to connect with those people and provide, I couldn't be a minister, so I'm trying to provide a service the best way I can. Now, what I will say is the show, as you said, I try to keep it entertaining. So it is not, we don't do mantras, which they're fine. There's, a lot of spirituality shows. I listened to a few of them, but that's not the show I wanted. And I also didn't want, listen to our show and in 6 months and buy our program and you'll make six figures. It's not that type of motivation program either. It's a show where you listen and you hear good stories and people that came out on top.
Nice. So if I may ask, what makes you successful?
What makes me successful is that I get up every day and I have clarity. And I may not even know what I'm doing that day, but I at least have clarity that I know. I don't know what I'm going to do that day. And I know I'm going to make it. I know I'm going to make it. The reason I'm successful is I perfectly love my imperfect life. It's not just what I dreamed of when I was a kid. Nah, not even close. But it's so good. It's so good. For me to be able to just walk through the desert in the morning and not have every obsession swirling through my brain and every negative thing in the world swirling through my brain and just enjoy the walk. Or sometimes listening to a podcast. Sometimes I even listen to Road. I don't know if you heard of that show.
Yay.
That's what makes me successful. What makes me successful is I have an incredible marriage. And what I stress when I have an incredible marriage is I don't need my husband. I love and adore him. When I was being abused, I needed that man. I needed him to complete me. I needed him to make me fulfilled. At one point, when the bottom fell out, I needed him to support me. With Maurice, I will be with Maurice the rest of my life, but it's because I choose to be, and I love and adore him. But I know if he got hit by a bus tomorrow, I would grieve heavily, but I'd be okay. And I decided I wanted to write books.
Very nice.
And so I did.
So if folks have a story they want to... Very nice. So if folks have a story they want to share, how do they reach out to you to get on your show?
They can either use the contact page on the website, which is queerweare.com, or you can email me, which is brad@bradshreve.com. I generally am booked up far in advance, but I am open to talk to anybody. And, I've had some high-profile people on. I don't want anybody to be intimidated by that. If you've got a good story to tell and you consider yourself successful, if you're living in a one-room studio apartment in the basement and you feel fulfilled because based on what you overcame, you've got a success story, and I want to hear it, and I want to share it with other people.
Well, I will be signing up then.
Okay, good.
Awesome. So what's up next for you? Either the show or you personally?
The show is just going to continue going. I hope to eventually start some type of plan where listeners we can work together if they have goals. This is something down the road that I hope to have by the end of the year. Some kind of group that if people have goals, we can sit down together informally and say, here's my goals, and meet every other week or once a month and coach each other. And we all know the steps to take. It's like going to the gym. We all know to work out, we all know to eat right, but there's a reason why you hire a instructor, because you need the accountability. So I'd like to start groups, but what I'm really working on right now is my next novel, which is the third in the Mitchell Riley mystery series. And my readers have basically given up because they don't believe that I am writing it. I can tell you I am definitely writing it. It's the most fun book that I've written. I'm having a ball, but it is taking long. It is taking a long time. Starting this new podcast was a little more to get off the ground than I expected.
Right. All right. And we have mentioned the website once already. Let's say it again, queerweare.com. Folks can springboard off of that to the many listening platforms. I think you're on 6 or 7 that I saw.
I'm on pretty much everything. Wherever you're listening to this show, you'll find me. It'd be hard to find a platform I'm not on.
If you drive by his window, he'll throw a USB stick at you.
There you go. Yeah.
It's got my first 5 episodes.
Call me up and I'll email me your phone number and I'll hold the phone up to the computer so you can listen to the show. Anything.
Nice.
There you go. There you go. Hey,
All right, Brad. Any final words of wisdom?
Yes, the same wisdom I give everybody. Do you guys know what a do-over is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, when I talk to people from the UK, they're like, what the hell's a do-over? And younger people don't know. Oh. For those that don't know, do-over, when you were given a dare as a kid and you failed, you would go do-over, or if you were playing a game and you lost, you would go do-over. And what I tell people is every morning is the opportunity to get out of bed and go do-over.
Right.
And I do it all the time.
All right, folk. I love it. And I know exactly what a do-over is. I grew up with them. All right, folks, we'd like to extend a huge thank you to Brad Shreve for joining us today. Brad, thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. We at Written on the Edge are proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators and their new media with their queer content creators. So tune into Brad's show. Like us, subscribe to us. Like him, subscribe to him. But now, on to our review.
So, people, we got a divisive flick to review today. And it's divisive within the queer community as much as it is out in the general media sphere. We are reviewing the movie Bros by Billy Eichner, who was one of the writers, and Nicholas Stoller is the director, and it stars Billy and Luke McFarlane, as well as a slew of queer people, and the Empress, the Goddess, Deborah Messing makes a big showing. So that is what we're going to review. The write-up is very simple. 2 men with commitment problems attempt a relationship.
Yep.
Go. That sounds like a prompt for an improv class. That's what that sounds like.
Mm-hmm, yeah,
it really does.
All right, gentlemen, who wants to start? Who wants to go?
Albert, why don't you start?
Yeah, I think, yeah. All right, so I had high expectations for this movie coming in because
he chose it for a reaction.
I know. So I watched the trailer and I was like, hey, this looks really funny, because the trailer included one of the meeting scenes, which is really funny. And I also had, I knew Billy Eichner from his role in Parks and Rec. So I had this really great impression of him. And then we watched the movie and now I'm not so sure.
I like how your volume petered out towards the end.
It's just, there's only so much complaining I can take during a movie. I don't know.
I'm surprised you're shocked by that, because his character in Parks and Rec was a massive complainer and a scream complainer.
I know, but I thought that it was a character, but now I'm starting to think that that's actually him.
Well, so if you've watched any of the Billy on the Street, he's not a scream complainer in that. And that's what I was thinking of him as first. I didn't see Parks and Rec until after I saw Bros, ironically enough.
Wow.
So my first impression of him was as an interviewer on the street. And then I saw this movie and I was like, what?
See, my first exposure to Billy Eichner was in Normal People, which was a show that he did where he was a gay guy and he had a gay best friend, girlfriend, that hung around. She was straight. And so and all they did was bitch, moan, and complain about it. That they kept saying they were the normal people and everybody else was strange. So for me, Billy has been more the bitchy queen than anything else. He also, when he was in American Horror Story, he played a really asshole famous person. And so it's kind of like, I'd like to see him become something completely different. And I know the Billy on the Street thing, but that's kind of just him being him doing it because the humor is what happens over here, kind of thing.
But that was my first exposure to him.
Yeah, no, that's fine, that's fair. But yeah, I've seen Billy. Normal People was the first exposure I had to him, and I liked him in it. It was a fun little spin. It was short lived though. It wasn't very. I think it only lasted one season, but I just don't remember seeing him do anything beyond that much than the bitchy asshole kind of gay person. So
right, and he also co-wrote Bros, right? So
yes,
the screenplay has a lot from him.
Yeah.
All right.
So let's talk about the positives before we delve into the negatives.
Oh my God, I loved all of the secondary characters were incredible.
That's where I'm going with that.
Loved all the guest appearances; they were really good. I even spotted one of the drag queens from RuPaul's Drag Race. That was a fun treat.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes,
Nice.
the inclusion in the cast was phenomenal and to be lauded. I mean, seriously, I understand it was necessary because of the LGBTQ center they were building, but they still brought this beautifully inclusive cast of all the different sexualities and colors, and it was great. I loved seeing that.
Yeah. Those were some of the best scenes when everyone was together talking around the table. I think those were really enjoyable.
They were. That was the movie I wanted to see.
I know,
right. Yeah. Could Luke just show up at the end and be the cute guy that Billy hooks up with, and they think, oh, maybe this could go somewhere, and then they ride off into the sunset? Could that be the movie? And yet we do the whole center thing as the focal point. I don't know. I really, it's funny. In our reaction, which we did do a reaction to it, Albert and I did, I laughed at several points, but it was more the absurdity of the moments when things happen. I mean, the one time I know I bursted out laughing was Christian Chenoweth showing up in that rainbow god-awful mess that was supposed to be a send-up of Christian Siriano, kind of, gay vibe, what you call it. And so I thought that was really funny. And I remember blurting out laughing when that moment happened because it was just so absurd that it just caught me off guard. So there, it's not that there aren't funny moments in the film, and Albert and I kind of commented on that when we were watching it, that there are moments you go, oh, that's funny. Oh, that's funny. But yeah, it still had a lot to pull focus. And I think one of the things, and I mentioned this to Albert, I said, at the same time that Bros was made, Joel Kim Booster was doing Fire Island. And we did a review for that. I'll put a link up here for that. But he did that movie, which was based on a gay version of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. And it had bitchy queens in that, but it wasn't the same kind of tone. I think that like what Albert and I kept coming back to, and Albert, speak to this as well, is that you really didn't care for either guy.
Yeah, I think that was the main problem. There were great one-liners, and you can tell that the people who wrote this movie, because I think it was co-written by two people, they were really smart, and they have some great insights. But many of these are really incisive, and you actually never get to see the romance develop. It's always, I don't know, it just feels wrong. Like you kept saying while we were watching the movie that we were missing the valleys amid the highs, and it's true. Like there was never a time for both of the male leads to kind of just be nice to each other.
That's what it was doing. It was doing this. Yeah. It was there was no actual place to rest and then come back up, and Vance?
My complaint about this movie was the same complaint I had about Will and Grace. The title characters were neurotic and unenjoyable, but the secondary characters made the film or made the show.
Yeah.
I watched Will and Grace for Jack and Karen. I did not care for Will or Grace. And I felt the same with this film. I did not care for the title characters, but the side characters, the friends, 100%. I was there
Yeah.
for them.
And can we just say that Deborah Messing does get the best moment where she goes off on her for 25 years. I've had to listen to Gaiman.
Oh my God.
Now, as I was trying to come up with my review numbers for this, I had a potential insight. I can't verify that it's true. We often tell writers to write the story they want to read. What if Billy wrote the movie he wanted to see?
That is very interesting.
I can't prove that was the case, but what if that's based on what I know of his personality now? What if this was the movie he wanted to see?
But it's interesting, and here's my counterpoint to that question. And in our reaction, I ended up showing a small snippet of Susie from The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yep.
And I said, you can write a biting, acerbic character, but still be a character you care about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think Billy misses the mark, and Nicholas, who directed, missed the mark. You never had a moment where you saw the pathos of what's driving the biting. All you had was exposition. Billy would tell a story about blah, 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 instead of revealing something. That's the beauty. And I know Mrs. Maisel had several hours to lay out the land for Susie, but Susie has this innate ability that the moment she's taking your head off, you just want to give her a hug, because there's something about that character. But it's acerbic, it's biting, she's caustic, she doesn't give a fuck what you think. She'll tell you that to your face. But there's something about her and the way she plays it that you find endearing, even when she tells you to go fuck yourself. And that's what I think is missing in Bros. Neither Luke's character, who's the buff dude who constantly hooks up, or Billy's character, who is so emotionally ravaged that all he does is bite at people. He reminded me of a 6'3" Chihuahua, because that's all he does is nip, 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 and it's like, God damn, take a breath, shut up, sit down, hold my beer, because you need to do something other than just yell at people. And I think part of what drove my angst was the fact that I'd seen him in Normal People, and this was the same character. It was like he took that character from that series and then went plop with buff boyfriend. There we go. And it's like, no, didn't really fly for me.
I think there were also a couple of moments in the movie when, like, the anger and the complaining was also directed at the audience. I don't know if this is only me, but there are two scenes. One when he's speaking with his romantic interest and complaining that people don't understand satire, and he's talking to the character. But I
I remember you saying that while we were watching.
Like, hey, is that for me? And there's this other time when he's saying, like, he's talking about the fact that his brand is being enraged or something when there's a thing with the B. And it's kind of like, hey, is that for me? So I don't know.
Yeah, I remember one of the things that Albert kept saying in the reaction was, who is this for? Yeah. And it speaks to your point, Vance. Who is this for? What you said, maybe it's the movie he wanted. Unfortunately, he forgot to clue the rest of us.
Yeah.
All right. Any other words, or should we get to our ratings?
Do you think this was a good representation of the gay community?
That's
no.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't.
I think one of the things
it had potential. No, I just want to say I think it had potential, but no.
Yeah, I think one of the things that made it very difficult to care about these characters is that both of the leads were endlessly complaining about their lives, and their lives are actually pretty nice.
Yeah.
He spoke a little bit about privilege and everything during the movie, and it was like, come on. I mean, I don't know. Like, what are you complaining about? It was, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to our numbers.
Okay, Vance, you go first since you have a more positive spin on it than Albert and I, because I think we're going to slay it.
I need a quick sidebar then to open up my rankings because I forgot to open it before we started because I wasn't used to using Zoom. 100% my error.
No worries.
All right. On sidebar. Production quality, I gave it a 4. It was actually, there was some money behind it. The scenes were beautiful. It was all well lit. Everything was, the sets were dressed properly. And not at one point was I thrown out of the film for the production quality. Script screenplay, 2. I wanted so badly to actually have a gay rom-com and I didn't get it. Sound lighting score, brought that back up to a 4. Again, it didn't throw me out. It did exactly what it needed to. I thought that was all fine. Art direction, costuming, 4. I mean, the bar scenes were very well costumed. The daily life stuff, perfect. The drag queens and the folks at the History Museum were excellent. So I thought that they did a good job there. Casting was a tough one for me. I gave it a 3.5 only because I didn't like the leads. I loved the secondary characters, every single last one of them. So that was a tough one for me to rank. Directing, 2.5. I think the director didn't tell me a story really that I wanted to see or hear, and my heart's been crying out for a gay rom-com, so queer themes presented, I brought that back up to a 4. Again, the secondary characters, they were so diverse and so well represented. So my personal overall was a 3.
Okay, fair enough. Albert?
All right. So overall production quality, I think it's a 4. I think most of the things were good about the movie. Like Vance was saying, I think, yeah, money was spent in the movie. It was fine. The screenplay, that's going to be a 2 for me as well. I just didn't care about the characters. I don't know what happened with the writing. It was intelligent and at times insightful, but nah. So that's a 2. Sound lighting score, that's a 4 for me because of the choice of songs, which is something we're talking about with Baz. Some of the background songs were completely inappropriate for the moments when they were being played, and that was really funny. So yeah. And so art direction, costuming, that's going to be, I think, like a 4 for me. I couldn't see anything wrong with it, but nothing extraordinary. So that's just a 4. The casting. So I think that I'm going to give that a 3 just because the leads are so important. And it just didn't feel like I could connect with them. And it was not particularly representative. Everyone else was amazing, but for me, that's a 3. The direction, that's also going to be a 2. I don't know. I think there were sections missing from the movie, which is something bad.
Yeah, we kept mentioning that. Is there a part on the floor that we need to pick up and put in the projector?
So when are the leads nice to each other? When do they actually get their love and things? Like, why do we get random chocolate things? I don't know. So yeah, that's a 2. And then queer themes, I'm going to give that a 3 because the big focus of the movie was just on the experience of these white cisgendered male people who have a certain life, which is not that representative of the experience of the broader LGBTQ community. And yes, there are side characters, but they aren't given enough importance. So I don't know. And so personal overview, that's going to be a 3. I really wanted to like this movie. The trailer was great, but no. So yeah, 3.
Okay. Overall, I'm okay. I'm going to just say across the board, the technical stuff, with the exception of screenplay and directing, the technical stuff, I'm going to give 4s. So overall is a 4. The screenplay, I'm going to give it a 2. I almost want to give it a 1. They are there. What irritates me is it's those moments where it comes so close to doing it right and it misses the mark. And that is so infuriating as a viewer. So that really kind of grinds me to the bone. So I'm going to give it a 2, though. I'm going to be generous. Sound lighting score, 4. They spent the money. They knew what they were doing. And again, with the score and the inappropriate songs at the moments, that was brilliant. That I have to just hand it to them and say, yeah, because that just made those moments that when they'd happen. Art direction, again, another 4. Casting, I'm going to say a 3, and it's a qualified 3. I like Luke McFarlane. He was in one of our Christmas movies. I can't remember which one it is. I'll put it up here. And he's doing all these queer movies now. He started out doing straight Christmas movies and being the romantic interest and everything, and now he's doing all the queer ones. And that's great. And I really like him. And I know this was a different take for him. So in that respect, okay, I'm down with it. But pairing it up with Billy, I don't know. I think Billy needed to rein it in a hell of a lot more. I think one of the things that Albert and I really complained was the whole moment where they're breaking up at the bottom of the Brooklyn Bridge, and you're kind of going, what? How is this supposed to be bad? I think you guys should separate. I mean, it's just, yeah. So there's that. The direction, I'm going to say it's a 2, and that's because the director co-wrote it. Director should have known better. Nicholas, go watch some Mrs. Maisel. Okay, I'm just going to tell you, go out and watch some Mrs. Maisel. You missed the mark here. You had a chance to do not only a good gay rom-com, but you could have made it with that kind of wit and acerbic bite, but characters that we would have really loved. And if they had done that, it would have actually enhanced the secondary characters even more, because you could see that was the found family. That was who they were surrounding themselves. That's, like I said, it's barn door and you're shooting over here. That's the thing that's just like, oh my God, stop it. Okay. So my overall, I'm going to say is a 2.5. I really want, and as a counterpoint, Fire Island, I'm just saying, Joel Kim Booster did something along the same lines of a rom-com. It has its funny moments. It's got its tenderness. It's got a diverse cast. And that was done correctly, even though Joel Kim Booster was a lot like Luke McFarlane's character in Bros. He was the one, always the party boy, always going out, always getting laid and that kind of thing. And then you had, Bowen Yang, whose character is the sweet one that, just wants to find something meaningful. So you had this dichotomy, but it just was rendered so much better. And I think that was the problem that I had with it. I often wonder if Billy had not played the lead, if it had been somebody else, we might have had a completely different movie. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Billy just goes for the gut punch every time. And I think if you see him in American Horror Stories, if you see him in Normal People, he just has this, or he puts his claws into you and he won't let go. Like my cat who's attacking my monitor right now. Sorry if the camera's moving. And that's kind of, what I rail against mostly is like, Billy, maybe the reason why people didn't connect with it was you. Maybe you should have given this to someone else to play the biting, acerbic wit, but in a way that you don't play it. I don't know. It's the Alex Borstein. She plays Susie beautifully. If you'd given it to another actor, would it have been just as good? I doubt it. It's kind of the casting, and I almost want to adjust the casting again, because I think that was the one role more than anybody that was miscast was Billy. I don't think he should have been in it.
Wow.
So that's all I got.
I also think it's kind of a shame, because the movie did explore certain very interesting things, like this entire masculinity thing, like you have to be this macho man, whatever. I think that's maybe why the movie is called Bros, because they have this bro thing at the beginning, and that's really interesting. But then it's kind of forgotten because they had so much angst and things. So I would have liked more exploration of that, because it's something many gay men struggle with. So maybe that would have been a good idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning into this review. Go follow Albert Nothlit, albertnothlit.com. Pick up some of his books, like him on the socials. But Albert, thank you for joining us so much.
Yeah, it was a pleasure being here. So much fun.
All right. On to what won our week.
And we'll stop there.
Yes. So, what are you on about?
It's kind of funny that you did it in a British accent, because my who won the week, and Vance has been super busy. I'll put the picture up here of clearing the snow. The man is over it. Okay. Snow gods, just stop. Okay. But I have a beautiful who won the week. And since Vance has been busy shoveling and tunneling and trying to stay warm.
I do have a what I'm on about.
No, I'll get to that in a second. But
okay,
I want to let people know that our Won the Week is a shared Won the Week. Vance has no idea what I'm about to read when we get to that, but believe me, it is a lovely, lovely story. So, okay, so what are you on about this week?
My escapist television, compliments of Eugene Levy, The Reluctant Traveler on Apple Plus.
I'll have to check that out.
He has stepped out of his comfort
Oh,
zone.
that's right. I remember seeing previews of this. I know what you speak of.
He has stepped out of his comfort zone and gone to regions that he would never have gone to otherwise if there hadn't been a film crew involved, and allowed himself to do things that he never would have done at age 75, including things like dunking himself in the ice water of northern Finland in the middle of winter after 5 vodkas, to eating raw fish in Tokyo because his son Daniel told him he would enjoy it. It is 100% vacation escapism. Don't think it's
Right.
anything else. It is not scripted comedy, although he is very funny.
He is very funny.
He
Just naturally.
he is mostly yes, but he is mostly making fun of himself in these situations.
Okay.
However, the things that you see, the vistas, I mean, stunning, and in each location stays at a hotel that would cost you several $1,000s a night, but oh my God, are they beautiful. So yes, my on about is escapist television this week.
Okay. Well, I totally get that because you're like buried in like a penguin. Or as Benedict Cumberbatch would say, Bingling, Penguin.
Is penguins, crested penguins, parent penguin heading home. So why are these woodlands so attractive to penguins?
I still
How about
think he
you?
made that up. Okay, so I'm on about a couple of things. One, I just bought a new little microphone. It's a shotgun microphone. It's got a dead cat on it right now, which is what they call. I don't kill a cat, people. So PETA people, stay away from me. I am a cat lover. It is what they call this windscreen thing that I'm showing here on YouTube, and it's got a dead cat on it. But I'm recording it on my iPad, and even though Vance won't hear what the sound is, I will change the sound now to what it sounds like for $50. It's a shotgun microphone. It'll plug into your iPad, your iPhone, whatever, so you can use it for remote shots or what have you. And I'm just all about spending money, but spending it wisely if you want to do what we're doing on YouTube and expand. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there. It's by Movo. It's gotten as really good ratings from a lot of people. They're great reviews of it up on YouTube, so check it out. I have the Movo V10 Pro, which is what this is, and it was $49.95 on Amazon as of the recording right now. I mean, I don't know what their prices will change or not. But anyways, it comes with a nice little hard case. It also comes with, here's the case here. It comes with a shock mount, plastic mount kind of thing that you can put on your camera or whatever. So it's good for camera use. It's good for your iPhone, iPad, smartphone, what have you. And so I'm on about that because it's like money spent well in that, it's something that you can use for remote shots or if you want to do like travel logs or what have you. And it's got all the stuff that you need to do the recordings for it. All you need to do is download an app on your iPad or iPhone or what have you, or plug it into your camera, your mirrorless camera, and you're good to go. And the sound quality is actually pretty damn good. So on about that. And so the second thing I'm on about is Jason Momoa constantly, he's wearing traditional clothing. It's traditional Hawaiian wear, but he's doing this new launch of a t-shirt line that is it is one of his kind of giving respect back to the earth and projects where he's actually raising money and it's going to a good cause. He's sending it off in plastic-less packaging and stuff. So it's a really cool thing. And so the narrow picture in this butt shot that we're looking at now is him talking on Instagram, and I think he did it on TikTok too, where he's talking about the shirt and stuff, and the rear shot, literally, is was put up on Instagram as a still shot, and basically everybody's comment was, "Well, at least the flip flops matched the shirt." So I thought that was funny. I just find Jason's complete uh, irreverence. I find it very, very hysterical because it's truly native and how natives think of humor. So, anyways, I just wanted to share that. I will now remove the picture for Vance, but I just thought it was hysterical. And hey, the shirt did match the flip flops. So that's what I'm on about this week. I just thought that was a really funny thing. Okay, now since Vance does not have a Who Won the Week, I am going to share this lovely story, and this is via the queerpinknews.co.uk website by Amelia Hansford. And the title reads, Trans Woman Shares Beautiful but Heartbreaking Tale of Transitioning at 80. A retired trans firefighter has proven it's never too late to be your true self after undergoing gender confirmation surgery at age 80. Isabel told Good Morning Britain on Friday, March 10th, that she had always felt from an early age that her gender identity and her assigned sex didn't match. As a way to handle her feelings at the time, she began working jobs that made her feel more manly, including work as a sailor, which took her across the world. But in her 70s, with the blessing of her wife, Margaret, she decided to publicly transition into the woman she had wanted to be for more than 40 years. When I was younger, they were still imprisoning homosexuals, trans people, and weren't even talked about, Isabel said. I had the support of a wonderful, wonderful wife, sorry, I don't want to misquote her, who shall have been married to for 60 years. Isabel said her wife would support her by buying dresses that she would wear in the privacy of her own home. After Margaret began to develop symptoms of Alzheimer's disease, the two discussed their lives and came to the conclusion that life was too short for Isabel to hide her true self. Whatever makes you happy, dear. Margaret was eventually taken to a care home after symptoms worsened, but Isabel saying she doesn't really know me anymore. At 50, things were beginning to go wrong with Alzheimer's, she explained. We talked, as we've always done, about our lives, and I said if I was to live any kind of life without her, I wanted to become who I wanted to. She said that she told me 100 times, whatever makes you happy, dear. After coming out as trans with the support of her lifelong partner, Isabel made efforts to present her true gender and has never felt happier. After coming to terms with her decision, she set a date to come out to her family in July 2018 and was met with nothing but love. It was mostly a good experience, she said. 95% of people accepted me. I was upfront, when I told them. Things went on from there. I had certain medical things. I went to see my doctor for certain formalities and hurdles to jump. When asked whether she was nervous about coming out, she laughed, yes, but not as quite as nervous as I am now, her being on the show. Mm-hmm. Isabel mentioned the incredibly long waiting times at the NHS for gender identity clinics, which can see trans patients wait up to 4 years for a referral. After gaining a doctor's signature and other requirements, Isabel began taking hormones and eventually underwent gender confirmation surgery after reaching in her 80s. But the waiting time was so incredibly long, she eventually decided to pay out of her pocket for the private surgery. When I was made redundant at 50, I offered my family certain things like a new car, that sort of thing. They said, no, it's your money, so credit to them. Also, speaking to Good Morning Britain, Spire Yale Hospital's Chris Sipe, who performed the surgery, said he was blown away when he met Isabel, who called the doctor a wonderful, wonderful man. It's major surgery. It carries risks and there are complications, he said. But you see Isabel here, you don't even look at her chronological age when you see her. There's just so much energy in her. There's so much life to her. Her motivation is just exceptional. So, from wrote Isabel, won our week. And I will post a picture up here of what she looks like as she's on the British Talking Show. So, never too late to be yourself.
Beautiful.
Bravo, Isabel Jeffrey. And warm thoughts to your lovely wife. So, so that's who won our week. That's all I got.
Love it. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I just found that so beautiful. I'm like, yeah, that's it. We need some good stuff. So that's why I chose it.
All right, folks. Written on the Edge is produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For our disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.rotepodcast.com. If you enjoy learning about new artists, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts for new episodes. Sign up for our YouTube, subscribe, hit the bells, the whistles, do all the stuff. But thank you, and tune in next week for your queer media fix.
Hi.
That was new. There's the creep.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.